Hi, Dr. Klaper, and welcome to the Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's an honor and a delight, AJ, always to be with you.
Well, thank you. Now, Dr. Klaper, you have been a medical doctor for over 40 years, and almost 10 of those years you spent as a staff physician at the True North Health Center. When you think about all the patients you've treated for so many different chronic lifestyle diseases, how many of them maybe wouldn't needed to have seen you if it wasn't for excess body weight?
Oh my, I'd have to say at least 40 to 60% of the folks. Oh, it's a major issue with the majority of folks that I see, sure. It's America in the 21st century. How can obesity not be an issue? Sure.
Well, what was it always this way early in your practice, or what's changed?
No, how interesting you say that. I was just musing to myself that, oh my, as I look in the mirror and see this gray-haired doctor looking back at me, I've been a doc, as you say, 46 years. I entered medicine in the 60s and 70s. And in the space of my medical practice, I have watched the tsunami of obesity sweep through the American public. It's just been stunning. And so, yes, about the last 40 years, what's changed? Oh my, we could spend a whole hour on that. But what's happened is that our ever industrious, creative, imaginative food industry has figured out that us Homo sapiens love salt, sugar, and fat on our tongue. And they got busy in the laboratories and came up with a concept. As soon as I heard it, I knew it was trouble. Hyper-palatable foods. And that really, oh, you like salt, sugar, and fat? Great. Here's a whole panoply of different flavors of salt, sugar, and fat. And whether it's the entrees in the fast food restaurant or the desserts at the ice cream store, we've been shoveling in sugar and fat into our mouths at record rates. And our bodies are not impressed. We've got these ancient bodies who crave storing fats for famine time, and they sure do it. They don't know any different. And we wind up accumulating massive amounts of fat.
Yeah. Early on in your career, didn't you make a connection with fat when you actually one time had to draw blood for a patient? That's not normally your job to draw blood, but I remember hearing a story that really made you think about how we eat affects even our arteries.
Right. Oh, indeed. It was very graphically brought out to me. Fats and lipids in the blood were just numbers you see on the laboratory values. But one day I was a resident in anesthesiology in Vancouver. I was on the cardiovascular anesthesia service. And I was making rounds for patients to be seen for surgery. And a nurse came up to me and said one of our patients had been out on a day pass with their family and missed the regular blood draw. Would I mind drawing a tube of blood on them because there was a couple of lab tests needed to be done? And I said, sure, I'll be glad to do that. And I drew some tube of blood on the gentleman and put it up by the nurse's station. Saw some other people on the ward, and when I was getting ready to take the tube down to the lab, I was going there anyway, I looked at the blood tube, and I had to look again. The red clot settled to the bottom. The liquid part of the blood, the serum, rises to the top, and it should be crystal clear yellow. You can see through normal serum. This serum was thick and milky white. It looked like library glue. And I went back to the man. I said, "Yeah, when you were out with your family, did you eat?" "Oh yeah, we had a cheeseburger and a milkshake." And as soon as I said that, I realized what I was looking at in that tube was all the fat in the beef, all the butter fat and the cheese, the egg yolk and the mayonnaise on the bun, all the vegetable oil and the French fries. All this fat the man had eaten had oozed out into his blood and actually turned his blood fatty. The phenomenon is called lipemia. And everybody has this after a fatty meal. It doesn't necessarily show as gross as this man does, but all of us have a wave of fat that goes through our bloodstream after you eat a fatty meal. How can you not? Well, where's it going to go? Of course it's in your blood. And it's there for hours, for 5 or 6 hours. Your blood runs thick with fat till your liver can start to take it out of there. So right there, I had a very graphic example. This is not theoretical. They're saying out of sight, out of mind. Might be out of sight after you eat that burger, but it might be out of your mind, but not out of your bloodstream, and it's not out of your tissues. And we all see the the consequence of this on a regular basis, both on fat on the bellies. And when we took him to the operating room a couple of days later and the surgeon opened up his arteries, I saw all the fat was kicking the walls of his arteries. And I realized this is not theoretical. We're eating way too much fat and it's sticking to us in all the wrong places.
So there's a definite connection between what we put in our mouth and what shows up in our arteries.
Absolutely.
They didn't do that in medical school, though, did they?
Yes, it was made very graphically evident to me there. And, you know, when folks come to our retreats or at True North, I would tell them, welcome to Camp Stop Kidding Yourself. And stop kidding yourself that eating this stuff doesn't have profound effects inside our body. And that's basically what our summit is doing right now, that you're providing for your clients. And all of us, we need to stop kidding ourselves that our food is not a major player in our health futures, and we all have control over it.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the gentleman whose blood was full of fat, that he had eaten a cheeseburger and a shake. And in a wonderful lecture you just gave at True North, you talked about 3 of the most deleterious things to our health, and I imagine also our waistline: our cow's milk, which was the milkshake; animal products, which was his burger; refined carbs, which was his bun; and processed oils, which I'm sure was somewhere in that meal.
Absolutely. And when I have someone who's sitting in front of me with too much adipose tissue, too much fat on their body, there's no question. They're eating one or more of 4 things. They're either eating dairy, oil, flour products, or animal flesh, or some combination of all of those. But yes, those are the foods that stick to us. Rice and beans and greens don't stick to you, but flour and oil and dairy and meat certainly can.
Does it drive you crazy as a physician to see things like keto and paleo just being so popular, knowing what you know?
Oh my, those philosophies are doing such harm, and they appeal to the most basal instincts that we love that taste of meat on our tongue, that chewy, salty texture. But the damage that does to us, and to be telling people this is a good thing for you to do, is one reason why our obesity epidemic is not getting any better. And we can take a little diversion into the keto world there, but this is not a healthy way to eat. It's okay for the body to go into ketosis every so often. It's a good cleansing, mildly stressful state. And it's okay to stay in it for a few days, a week. Intermittent fasting will dip you into ketosis. That's great. But you don't want to stay in ketosis week after week, month after month. It's a state of acidosis. It's a stress on the liver and the kidneys, maybe hard on the bones. This is not a healthy way to eat. We are carbohydrate-burning organisms. We are meant to eat fruit and vegetables and starches, and because carbohydrates burn cleanly, carbon dioxide, water, and boom, it's gone. So and our mitochondria in our cells, they burn glucose, not fats. Our primary fuel is glucose, is the sugar in plant foods. And so this idea that, you're supposed to be eating fats and meats, and that's a natural diet. We are not carnivorous apes, no matter what the paleo folks tell us. And we ought to go back to what the real apes eat. And in our gorilla and our bonobo cousins are up in the trees this morning, eating leaves and fruit like they're designed to do. And we have the same digestive system as they do. And we really should be eating foliage in various forms, just like our simian cousins do.
And now we have more doctors like Dr. Gundry saying, well, you can't eat beans, lectins, can't eat tomatoes. What do you say to that nonsense?
Oh my, that's just what we didn't need right now. It's to cause even more confusion, have people reluctant to eat whole plant foods. This whole idea that lectins are somehow evil and tomatoes and beans are somehow dangerous to us, when humans right now are eating tomatoes and beans around the world and not dropping dead from lectin poisoning. We've been doing it for centuries. This idea that these foods are somehow become toxic to us, it just doesn't make any sense. Lectins are proteins that if you eat too many of them, if you don't want to eat raw beans, that's true, but don't eat raw beans. Lectins are destroyed by heat. And so when you cook the beans, you cook the lentils, the lectins are not an issue. In 47 years of medicine, I've never written a diagnosis of lectin poisoning as for diagnosis. It really is much ado about nothing. And people want to have beans and tomatoes, absolutely do. But cook your beans. Beans should be soft enough to squish between your fingers. If they're at that consistency, lectins are not an issue.
Right. Well, you said something on Christmas Day at your wonderful lecture at True North that is what really made me want to interview you for this summit, because I've definitely never heard it said this way. You said, and I quote, "Obesity isn't a disease, it's inflammation." Please tell us about that.
Yes, I've been concerned. I was looking for here's a slightly better place, sorry, without a shadow on my face. I've been very concerned, as I said, I've seen this massive amounts of obesity sweep through our society. And instead of getting concerned about it, people, the Society for Fat Acceptance, that's just who we are. We're fat now, it's okay. It may be okay socially, but biologically, obesity is not a state of health. Obesity is a state of inflammation. And there's a number of ways in which this happened, but people need to understand that if someone's got a large pendulous abdomen, and as an old anesthetist, I've seen lots of abdomens opened by the surgeons, and you see that the intestines are wrapped in fat in an obese person. And this fat is not benign padding. This is metabolically active tissue. And one of the molecules that this massive fat releases are called inflammatory cytokines. And these molecules set off inflammation and perpetuate inflammation throughout the body. And there's so many disease states now, from arthritis and psoriasis actually to depression, that we now know has an element of inflammation associated with it. And people with the broken out skin and the sore joints and the chronic abdominal pain and the chronic headaches need to realize that there's inflammation happening in these tissues. And if they've got a large abdomen secreting inflammatory cytokines, then their diet and their obesity is playing a major role in that. And until that melts away, which a healthy plant-based diet will do, I'm sure we'll be talking about that, you've got this engine of inflammation going on in your abdomen, and things often don't get better, much to the concern of the patient and the doctor. But people should not be accepting their obesity. They should be eating whole food plant-based diets and melt that obesity away. And so many things get better. We can talk about it, but the obesity also leads if you've got all that fat on your abdomen, you've got fat in your blood. And the fat clogs up your insulin receptors and makes people insulin resistance. And that is the road off to type 2 diabetes as well. So people should not be accepting obesity. They ought to be saying, how can I melt this away? And we'll be talking about some of the real truth behind that as we progress.
Absolutely. So please talk about that. But first, I want to ask you, I've been following an exclusively plant-based diet for over 41 years, and I'm sure you have at least that long or almost as long, if not longer. But so many people, it's so hard. And then, they have cravings for meat and cheese and sugar. And then, 2 days, they just go back to it. Why is it so hard?
Oh, my. A lot of that certainly is habit. We love those textures and those tastes. We like that chewy, salty flavor that's inherent in the meat. And if you've been raised on a meat-based diet since infancy, it's possible that people can develop an actual physical dependency upon the carnitine, creatine, et cetera, that washes through your system with every meal. And people adopt a plant-based diet, and suddenly those muscle-based nutrients that have been coming in 3 times a day with the bacon and eggs for breakfast and the cheeseburger for lunch and the chicken for dinner, there's these constant showers of muscle-based nutrients going through our bloodstream. Then you go to a plant-based diet and boom, those are gone. And now you've got to manufacture all of them your own. Most people can do that, but some folks, it might take a month or 2 or 3 or 6 for their enzymes to gear up for the carnitine production, creatine production, et cetera, that they need. And in that time, they may start feeling a little depleted or deficient, and they eat some meat and all those preformed nutrients wash through them again. And they say, I'm a carnivore, I'm a paleo person. But this is not normal human physiology. This is an acquired dependency. that was created with all the love in the world. At age 6 months of age, that baby's still nursing at the breast or nursing on the bottle. And with all the love in the parents' hearts, that jar of baby chicken, baby turkey, baby lamb is open. And from that point on, 3 times a day, animal flesh is slathered on that child's intestine, run through their liver, and all through infancy, childhood. They're either already eating their fast food burgers, all through your puberty years, adolescence, your teens, your 20s, your 30s. You eat animal flesh 3 times a day for 30 years, 40 years, you may well have a physical dependency on it. But it fades away if you make that transition. Some people may have to eat a small bit of flesh once a week for X number of weeks or months, but I urge people to start stretching it out, the interval between that, and you can taper yourself off as your enzymes start gearing up to make your own muscle-based nutrients. So these food cravings can be real, but they shouldn't be an all in, oh, I want my meat again, and this doesn't work for me. No, you have to realize, after 30 years, 40 years, there might be a metabolic momentum going for the old style of eating. And it's like, turning an ocean liner, some folks might take a few weeks, a few months to make the transition. But listen, there's you eat 3 times a day, times 7 days, there's 21 meals in a week. 18 of them, 19 of them, well, they should all be whole food, plant-based. They should all be lentil stews and bean chilies and all the wonderful foods that you make so well, AJ. And if once a week they have to have a small amount of animal flesh for a few weeks or a few months, okay. But again, the main food stream going through your digestive system should be made of whole plant foods. And if you do, one of the many rewards outside of clean arteries and that's, pain-free joints and clear skin, all those things, is that the weight melts away. And we'll be talking about that, I'm sure, in a few minutes. Yeah, these meat cravings can be real, but it's a challenge. It's kind of dues you have to pay for eating this flesh-based diet for all the early years of your life. But I urge people to get off that train. It is not taking you to any place good, and it's just a matter of time before the blood shows up in the colon from the colon cancer, or the person gets the stroke, or the chest pain, or some sign. This is the diet of mountain lions. It's not human food to be eating flesh 3 times a day. I mean, not even mountain lions eat flesh 3 times a day. And this abnormal diet is the root of these diseases we're seeing. So I urge people to do whatever you need to do to taper off or make the jump all at once. And due to your wonderful wizardry in the kitchen, there's lots of ways to make plant-based dishes that have that salty, chewy, textury, satisfying flavor. Some of these wonderful everything from hearty sandwiches to these spreads to these bean dishes. You can get quite a lot of taste satisfaction, as you well know. So don't let a meat craving put people off from this absolutely essential transition. We don't want to stay carnivorous apes. We're not.
That's very helpful. I notice even Dr. Klaper, even people that are vegetarians have cravings for dairy, and people that are just even vegans have cravings for the sugar and the fat. And it seems like it's really hard for them to lose weight when they're always stuck in the pleasure trap.
Indeed it is. But there's a difference between a taste craving and true hunger. And I urge people, and we'll be talking about this, but the real trick, of course, again, going back to the basics, we want to keep your belly full of whole plant foods in some form or another. And in my life and in my practice in our house, that's oatmeal and fruit in the morning, and lunches and dinners are big salad and hearty vegetable soups, and big plates of steamed green yellow vegetables and bean chilies and lentil stews, and desserts are berries with rice milk on it and papayas and mangoes. You keep your belly full of that kind of food all day. You're not going to, hunger will not be an issue, and the glory of this food, you can, if you want another bowl of bean chili, go ahead, have it doesn't stick to you. That's one of the glories of this kind of eating. But also, you keep your belly full, most of those cravings go away. You can satisfy the sweet craving with healthy foods, with mango chunks and berries. That's all I really need for sweet. But I will have 1 square or 2 squares of dark chocolate twice a month, you know. Yeah. So once you keep your belly full of healthy food, then you can play a little bit with some of the taste treats and make up a nice smoothie or one square of dark chocolate. But that's different than true hunger. You satisfy your hunger with whole plant foods, and then it's a matter of just having a light a light little taste treat from time to time.
I think you said you went to medical school in the 60s. What did they teach you about the cause of obesity back then, and what was the treatment back then?
Oh my. And unfortunately, the same distorted information is still being dispensed in medical schools. Oh, the problem, of course, eating too much. Calories in, calories out. You're eating more calories than you're burning up. Then you got to cut back on the amount of food you're eating and exercise more so you burn those off. Both of those are bankrupt strategies. Never works. Someone on a chronically calorie deficient diet, hunger builds up. You can do it for a few days. You can do it for a week or two, man. And then the hunger becomes voracious. You will eat everything in sight and the weight goes right back up. Chronic calorie deprivation does not work. And exercise is beautiful, is wonderful, and it keeps you healthy and strong, but it does not work for weight loss. The human body has such power to get energy out of foods that a friend of mine put on his metabolic measuring equipment and ran up 73 floors at the Westin Hotel in Atlanta in 20 minutes and calculated how much energy he burned in the form of Oreo cookies. And I had the audience, he goes, how many Oreo cookies do you think he burned going up 78 floors? 2.5, 3 cookies. Our muscles are so efficient and there's so much energy stored in these sugary foods that you have to, let's see what, 1 mile takes about 3,500 calories. 1 pound of fat will carry you 35 miles. You can't out-exercise your mouth. And so absolutely do those aerobics and go out for those walks. That's wonderful, wonderful. But don't go out for a run and then come back and jump on the scale and think you're going to be 3 pounds lighter because you won't be. Exercise is for fitness, not for weight loss. Weight loss happens at the table.
Absolutely. Well said. I'm sure you've seen a lot of patients. Can you share one or two of the most transformative, inspiring stories of people that you've worked with?
Oh my! You and I, over the years, have seen so many people lose so much weight, and after a while, because the food is so good and the weight loss. Now, again, we can go more into the chemistry of it, but basically, as you're eating these salads and soups and greens and veggies, you're basically just filling your stomach up with fiber and water, and there's nothing in there that's going to stick to you, and you have these lovely, large, easy to pass bowel movements, and you'll pee a bit, but by and large, this stuff does not turn into fat. And so the weight loss kind of happens automatically. But that said, the ones that have pleased and surprised me the most are the folks, and maybe I'm saying something that's not so complimentary to myself, but there's some folks that you're talking to them in the office, say it's a couple, they're both overweight, and the woman she's taking notes, and the husband, he's all daydreaming, he's not into this at all. And you can tell that, and in my head, I kind of write him, well, he's not going to change. I'll see him in the emergency room with his chest pain, but he's not going to change. And then 4 months later, they come back to the office, and here's the guy. He lost 40 pounds. He looks great. His waist is trim. And he said, Doc, I heard what you said. And my wife's been making these great soups, and I'm loving this food. And man, the weight just fell right off. And boy, was that a lesson to me. You can't write anybody off. You never know what people have inside of them. And you never foreclose on people. They always have hope. I have hope for them. And the magic's in the food. And if they can start really getting into the food, the chemistry works its magic. That's what whole plant foods do. And so the ones that gratify me the most are the folks that I had the least hope for, but it once again showed the power of a whole food plant-based diet to create a lean, trim, healthy body, and just make the food taste good, and the chemistry does the rest.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm sure, Dr. Clapper, there'll be people watching this summit that will want to go out on a plant-based diet, but like they're diabetic, for example, and they've been told by their medical doctor that they can't eat carbs. What do
Oh
you
my. Um, my profession has been so deficient in educating our patients on so many levels, and we've gotten the message of the science so distorted, and we let it become so distorted that because the main symptom of diabetes is high blood sugar, well, obviously to avoid sugar, no sugar, no sugar, no sugar. Okay, no sugar, diabetes, no sugar, no sugar. Diabetes is not a disease of sugar toxicity. Diabetes is a disease of fat toxicity. I'm saying all the meat fat and the olive oil and the chips and the butter and the margarine and all the fat. And if you're a meat eater, what makes that melt in your mouth, chicken melt in your mouth? These birds are bred to put on as much fat as possible. And if you think chicken is lean food, lean meat, remember the last time you saw someone make chicken soup and what floats up to the top, and you see this layer of fat there. That's what makes it melt in your mouth good. These are high fat foods, the burgers and the fries and the chicken and the fish, and especially if they're fried, they just soak up all the fat from the fryer there, and people are eating it. Donuts and other fatty food. Cheese is the majority of its fat. And so it's all this fat gets into the muscle cells, liver cells, et cetera, and they clog up the insulin receptors. So when the pancreas releases insulin, which cruises around to the muscles and locks onto the muscles and says, okay, let the sugar from the bloodstream into the muscle cells to burn it, the muscles can't do that. They're so clogged up with fat that the insulin, like it's knocking on the door, but nobody answers. And insulin doesn't turn the magic, it's the key that no longer turns the magic lock there to let the glucose in from the bloodstream into the muscles to burn it. So as a result, sugar piles up in the bloodstream. And people go, oh, don't eat sugar. And that's true. They should not be eating candy bars and cookies, et cetera, refined sugars. But the real culprit, the reason why they're insulin resistant, is the fat that's clogging them up. And when people go on a whole food, plant-based diet and get their fats from a handful of walnuts, maybe a little avocado in the salad, but that's about it. They're, all foods, even, corn on the cob, there's a little bit of corn oil in it. There's fat in whole foods. You get your fats from those whole foods. Stop the oil, stop the dairy, stop the cheese, stop the meats, all these fats. Well, as time, over the next few weeks and months, your body looks around for calories to burn, and it looks at all that fat in the muscle cells. Ooh, we could burn that for energy. And that's what happens, that fat, that intracellular lipid in the muscle cells, the body burns it for energy, the insulin receptors open up, and suddenly insulin starts working, and the insulin resistance goes away. And type 2 diabetes is a reversible disease. And it distresses me no end when my medical colleagues say, well, diabetes never goes away. Once on insulin, always on insulin. And the best we can do is manage it. I didn't go into medicine to manage chronic disease. I went in to cure people. And type 2 diabetes is a curable disease. Get on a whole food, plant-based diet, melt that obesity away, stop all that fat floating in your blood, and insulin resistance pretty much clears up. And people are no longer diabetic. So nobody should be eating candy bars and sugary drinks and all of that. And we sure shouldn't be eating all this fat. But if you eat what grew out of the garden, diabetes becomes a non-issue, and it's eminently reversible. And I urge people to really research this. Dr. Neil Barnard wrote a beautiful book called Dr. Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. I highly recommend it to your guests watching this program, and reverse your diabetes so you can get off that insulin. The first time, again, I was taught once on insulin, always on insulin. Nobody gets off insulin. Well, in my early years as a plant-based doc, I got people to eat whole food, plant-based diets. The fat melted away. And I'm getting calls from patients, Doc, I had a hypoglycemic reaction. I'm down to 10 units of insulin, and I'm still running low blood sugars. And I said those fateful words, stop your insulin, man. You don't need it anymore. Well, I thought there'd be a puff of smoke and the ghost of my internal medicine professor would show up. What did you say? Stop his insulin. Yeah, stop easily. He doesn't need it anymore. He no longer has diabetes. And so people can create this phenomenon for themselves. And I urge people to learn about this and adopt the healthy diet that AJ is telling you about, and watch diabetes go away.
Oh, amen to that. It's amazing that the diet that, like you say, melts the fat away, reverses the diabetes, is the best for the planet, the best for the animals, for human health. I mean, why wouldn't somebody do it? You know, Dr. Klaper, you wrote a wonderful book on vegan nutrition and pregnancy. And I once heard you say in a talk that there are no failed vegans that were born vegan. And when I think about that, when there are a lot of overweight vegans right now, but I've never seen someone that was born vegan and raised vegan be overweight or struggle with their weight.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. I back in the 80s, I had a number of vegan women in my practice that became pregnant, and they wanted some guidelines. So I wrote a bunch of handouts, and eventually grew into a small book on pregnancy, children, the vegan diet. And because I followed these women through pregnancy, and all of them heard from their family, "Oh, you don't eat meat. That baby's going to come out weighing 2 pounds and all underweight and scrawny." And every one of these women, I can assure the vegan women out there, they're, eating the whole food plant-based diet that AJ is recommending, they go through these lovely pregnancies. They have these normal 6-7 pound kids. They almost they don't need forceps deliveries. They don't need cesarean section. These kids come out robust and for this reason, vegan diet in pregnancy is a whole food plant-based diet is absolutely reasonable. But that baby, now you've got this little newborn, what are you going to feed them? Again, you nurse this baby for a good 12-18 months and then start get them on whole plant foods and use bean spreads and things to get high calories into them. And they grow up and they are not obese, they're lean kids, and they grow up bright and strong and healthy, and they stay that beautiful lean body configuration. And if they continue a whole food plant-based diet, they will never become obese. They will never develop high blood pressure. They're not going to develop type 2 diabetes. They're not going to develop clogged arteries. They won't develop colitis. They live long, healthy lives in these lovely, lean, healthy bodies. And that's the way Homo sapiens should be. If we were dogs, we were supposed to be greyhounds, not Saint Bernards, and this is an absolutely reasonable way to raise a child, and the vegan kids are just beautiful kids, and they do just great.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things we haven't yet talked about on this summit was alcohol, and I don't believe it's a health food. I know that the World Health Organization has said that they'll no longer recommend any amount of alcohol as safe, but I wonder what your take is when it comes to weight, because I personally have never been able to work with anyone, especially female, that's already been overweight, that can include alcohol and be lean. It's not a weight loss food, is it?
No, it isn't. And I'm not a big alcohol fan. Maybe it's from all the nights in the emergency rooms. Too much alcohol brings out the worst in people. They get violent and nasty, and I've been bled on. It's not a simpatico drug for the human brain, that's for sure. But seriously, in my opinion, alcohol is a toxin for every organ in the body. In the hospital, we dip our surgical instruments into alcohol because it kills everything it touches. And in our medical textbooks, there's an alcohol toxicity syndrome for every organ: alcoholic cardiomyopathy of the heart, alcoholic hepatitis for the liver, alcoholic gastritis for the stomach, alcoholic myopathy for the muscles, alcoholic neuropathy for the nerves. Any drug that causes so much toxicity can't be good for us. And I don't care if it lowers your cholesterol 2 ounces. The best way to 2 points. The best way to lower your cholesterol is stop eating anybody else's cholesterol, and your cholesterol will take care of itself. People use it as a rationalization. Doctor says it lowers my cholesterol, and 1 glass of wine, 2 must be even better. And off we go to a real toxicity. Alcohol ages us. It kills cells. I can't view it as a health food in any way, shape, or form. And I would urge people, go with the non-alcoholic wines. And if you're trying to lose weight, it's got a little belt of calories in it. They're burned pretty quickly. I don't know if it really contributes to obesity, but it sure doesn't contribute to health, that's for sure. And now the reason why the World Health Organization retracted that advice, we now see, is that for every glass of wine a woman drinks, her risk of breast cancer goes up significantly, prostate cancer in guys. it weakens the immune system's ability to eat up cancer cells. Why would you drink that? I don't care what goes with a spaghetti dinner. It's not a health food, and I urge people to reconsider their alcohol ingestion. And so, well, put a period on that one. I realize I didn't quite pick up I don't think the complete answer to an earlier question when you said you got some vegan folks who are still overweight. If I have an overweight vegan, and I get them in the office, as do you, and I've been vegan 5 years and I'm still carrying this weight, no question they're eating flour and oils. And there might be some hidden dairy in their diet, but if they're carrying weight, they're eating refined sugars in the form of flour, probably, and their oil is sneaking in there in some way, shape, or form, and that's really the issue there. But people who are eating soups and salads and greens and veggies, you can't hold weight on that food. You're going to get lean on that.
I agree, not eating whole foods.
Indeed.
So you've seen this, and so have I. We were just together for 11 days at the extravaganza at True North, and these people do remarkably well, and then they go home. And then what?
Oh my, the phrase that I really come to fear, loathe a little bit in my practice when they come back and they put the weight back on is, well, you know how it is, Doc. You know how it is. My daughter-in-law came into town. You know how it is. The boss came over for dinner. You know how it is. We had a college reunion. You know how it is. And we find ways to seduce ourselves, or we let ourselves be seduced. And, welcome to camp. Stop kidding yourself. Your body is not impressed. Shakespeare says, "Thine own self be true." I tell people, "Thy own arteries be true, thy own colon be true, thy own breast tissue be true, thy own prostate be true." Now, your body doesn't care that your daughter-in-law is in town. Your arteries don't care that the boss is over for dinner. It just cares what is in the food that you just put down your gullet. That's the only thing that matters. What's flowing through your arteries now after you've eaten food X. That's the only thing that matters. So we both recognize that humans we're seducible, no question, and it's easy to yield to those old habits. And I'm sure a lot of your weight loss summit here is devoted to giving people the tools to when that temptation strikes, when that cheesecake looks really good, how do you handle it? And then we leave medicine, we get into psychology at that point. And, there's all sorts of tricks on how to handle this, how to order out in restaurants. And before I go out to eat in a restaurant, I eat. I have a salad, I have an apple. I don't want to walk in that restaurant famished, so I polish off 2 baskets of bread before the waiter gets there to take my order. There are little tricks and things that we can talk about to help resist the seduction. I know how I feel if I eat that greasy this or that, and a half hour later I'm feeling greasy. Well, I jumped right ahead, Michael. You know how you're going to feel if you eat that. Don't even, been there, done that. And then we often will bring some cut up fruit to the party, and we'll munch on melon chunks. I'm sure you have dozens and dozens of tricks to help people in these tempting situations there. But basically, well, first it would have to be a vegan treat. I'm an ethical vegan, and I know that for every little bit of dairy here, some calf has been taken away from their mother, some poor animals go into the slaughterhouse because I said, well, I'll have a little bit of this or that. And I just don't cheat on the animals. I know the truth of animal products, so that's not even an issue. The vegan treats, the vegan donuts, whatever, it's junk at this point. It's clearly just fat and sugar sitting on the tray there. And maybe it's from all the white hairs. I've done that so many times, and I've been sorry so many times that I don't need to do it again. And I just go for the good stuff at this point, the melon chunks and the berries, and I satisfy my sweet tooth with healthy things.
Right, and you mentioned the concept of the 4 S's, not only for optimal health, but they're also unparalleled for weight loss.
Indeed, it works. And again, it circles back to that basic fact of physiology. Keep your belly full of whole plant foods. They're all fiber and water. As you and Jeff Novick tell us, the calorie density is low. There's not that many calories in a salad. And so you can eat all you want of it. And so I tell people, that, well, how do I make a healthy meal? How do I put a healthy dinner together? Well, as a memory aid, I talk about the four S's there: soup, salad, steamed veggies, and starches. And so get together a nice, colorful salad with a no oil dressing. I'm sure you can help folks do that. Have a I'm a big fan of hearty vegetable soups. My wife Elise makes these wonderful soups, and we fill them full of cut up veggies and lentils and beans and quinoa, and we make them really hearty, but again, more fiber and water, really. And steamed veggies are so important. You know, they're your two favorite. You want to be healthy, your two favorite colors should be green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow. Have something dark and green, kale, chard, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, something dark and green, and something yellow, carrots, squash, sweet potatoes, yam, at least once during the day, if not, you know, at a given meal. And so we're always steaming up broccoli and chard, and always have carrots in the salad there, but green, have something green and yellow, but steamed veggies. And a healthy starch, whether it's a sweet potato or a big helping of quinoa, etc. That's the foundation of a healthy meal, and you can pretty much have all you want. If you want another bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? Have another one. And so soup, salad, steamed veggies, and starches is the foundation for a healthy meal and guilt-free eating.
Right. Well, I agree with you, and I can attest to the fact that you, Dr. Klaper, practice what you preach, because we shared a house together for 11 days, and you had greens at every meal that greens were available. You know, I think about our mutual friend, Dr. Goldhammer. One thing he said that really stuck is that it is impossible to sustain obesity if you eat enough raw salad and steamed vegetables.
Absolutely, absolutely. You get lean on this food, and that's the glory of it. And that's the way it's another validation from the universe that it's our natural food, and you get rewarded by nature, by the animals, however you want to say it, with a lean, healthy body with normal blood pressure and normal blood sugars, and you stay out of the clutches of people like me. You know, you want to. I tell my patients, I want to see you in two places and two places only: on the bicycle path and at the health food store. We're buying your tofu. Other than that, I don't want to see you. And if they eat well, that's what comes to pass.
Absolutely. So I'm sure you've had patients that are in mixed relationships, either one's vegan and one's not vegan, or maybe one's supportive and one member isn't. How do you advise these? Because I see these women, they leave True North and they go home to an environment where their kids want pizza and their husband wants to eat all kinds of crap food, and then they relapse.
Yeah, that's a real tough one. It really is. So what's the best thing to do about that? First of all, to that woman who with the husband, the meat-eating husband at home, first of all, he wants you healthy. No matter what his choices are. God forbid you get a breast lump, you get a stroke, your marriage is never the same. And so if you love your husband, you love your marriage, take care of yourself. And as I said, your arteries don't care, your breast tissue doesn't care, your colon doesn't care what your husband wants. It just wants whole plant foods going down to keep you free from these medical disasters. So this is serious business. We're talking, dare I say it, life and death here. This is serious business. And it's your food that's going to determine if you live a long, healthy life or you don't. So just frame it that I got to get serious about this thing before something bad happens. Then you got to be a little, determined, but make up a dynamite vegetable stew for yourself. You don't have to say a lot. When you get home to your husband, don't make a big pronouncement. Well, we're going to eat healthy now. You're never going to eat any more junk food and this. That's a sure way to get a guy to dig in his heels. Oh yeah, well that's what you think. I tell him, you know what to say? You don't have to say anything. Just start making these dynamite soups and casseroles and stews and curries and chilies. And believe me, your husband will like them. They're delicious and does not meat dependent. But if you got, I want my ground beef and chili, okay, make up that wonderful dynamite stew or chili. Take out yours on your own before the meat goes in and add the meat to your husband there. Don't say anything. Don't get into an argument. This is not what this is about. But the most important thing, do not underestimate the power of your example. You just quietly do it yourself. And meal after meal, week after, your husband may for a little bit. After a while, well, that's how my wife eats. And as her wife starts getting more shapely and more healthy, and she's offered metformin and she's offered lisinopril, gee, I'm feeling good. after a while, the message starts getting through to the guy, and he sees his paunch on him, and well, gee, maybe I bet this. You don't have to add the meat on this one, hon. And slowly, you know, by your example and by your persistence and perseverance, husbands often come around. They want you healthy, and they want to be healthy themselves. So again, let the food do the talking. Don't let it be a point of conflict. But man, don't underestimate the power of this and the importance of this. And get on with doing it for your own sake. And it'll be a gift to your husband. Ultimately, you'll say, you know, honey, it was the best thing you did by changing your diet. Boy, we're better off for it. But it might take you 6 months or a year before you hear those words. That's okay. Do it yourself, and the rewards will be manifold.
Dr. Klaper, you did a wonderful DVD. I believe it was called Salt, Sugar, and Fat, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. How important are those three things when it comes to losing weight? I mean, how important to not consume?
Well, you are so professional in your pacing here, whereas we're coming down the home stretch here, you really got to the key issue here. And it's turning out, as far as I can see, the real problem, and this includes overweight vegans, is the combination of fat and sugar. If we eat, you can eat all the grapes you want. Your body's not going to turn healthy plant sugars into fat. It's not going to break apart a glucose ring and string the fragments into these long-chain fatty acids. It won't turn sugar into fat. It'll burn it off as heat. But if you eat sugar and fat at the same time, you pour oil on your pasta, you eat a vegan donut, you eat a almond butter and jelly sandwich. Because it's easier to burn sugars than burn fats, your body will burn the sugar and store those fats for later. So it's that fat-sugar combo that really sticks to us. And so now oils themselves have issues. They make your blood thicker. They change hormone levels. The oils themselves have an issue. And sugars in fruit juices and in desserts and things, they stick to our proteins. They age us. You don't want to eat sugar as a food. So refined sugars and oils, you shouldn't be eating them because of their own biochemical adverse effects. But when we're talking weight loss, it's that fat-sugar combo that's really sticking to people. And let me say those classic goes by. If you're pouring oil on your pasta, you will burn the sugar in the pasta. You'll store the fat in the oil. You're eating a vegan donut, you will burn the sugar in the pastry flour. You will store the fat in the shortening. You're eating an almond butter and jelly sandwich, you'll burn the sugar in the jelly and the bread. You will store the fat in the almond butter. So avoid that fat-sugar combo. Oh, does that mean fats are bad? No, you can have fats, but have the avocado, throw it on your salad, eat it with your greens. You can make up a tahini dressing, pour it on the broccoli, but don't eat it with the potato at that meal. You know? So you want to, now this is just for the weight loss folks. If you're already lean, don't drive yourself nuts over this. All whole foods have a little fat, a little bit of sugar. But if you're trying to lose weight, don't kid yourself that this fat-sugar combo is not what's sticking to you. It is. So eat whole foods is what it comes down to. Eat those salads, eat those greens, eat those soups. Everything that I just mentioned fades away to insignificance. It's the processed stuff that really sticks to us. So go for a whole food, plant-based diet, and people wind up lean and healthy. So salt, sugar, and oil, they should be minimal, if not absent from the diet, added salt, sugar, and fat. But again, it's that fat-sugar combo that really is the heart of a lot of these weight loss issues.
Right, because there didn't used to even be vegan junk food back when you and I became vegan many, many years ago. And even people that say they're sugar addicts, it's not like they can't stop eating Twizzlers or gummy bears. It's like you say, it's always the fat and the sugar that hooks them in and keeps them.
Well said, doctor. You got it.
So what about salt? Because we've had speakers that, of course, like Dr. Goldhammer, who's insistent no salt. But that seems to be the hardest thing for people, at least in my experience, and I think yours too at True North, that they can learn to live without oil and even without sugar because there's fruit. But salt is salt, and take it away from people, and they just seem very unhappy.
Indeed. And we certainly have a physiologic need for sodium in our diet. The salt we need, really, the sodium, it's in the food, it's in the veggies, it's in the fruits. You don't really need extra sodium. Though some folks, real skinny folks with low blood pressure, they do benefit from a little extra salt there. I don't have a problem literally, and I think the science is very solid, that it literally a pinch, less than an eighth of a teaspoon on your veggies at the table doesn't seem to be dangerous unless you've got runaway high blood pressure. The problem with the sodium is the processed foods. It's the spaghetti sauce at the Italian restaurant, the teriyaki sauce at the Chinese restaurant, and cheese is full of salt. You can't make cheese without salt in it. It's all the processed foods and the vast amounts of salt that come in with that. That's why it stiffens our arteries, makes us retain fluid, raises our blood pressure, and can even turn on genes that set off autoimmune diseases like lupus. We eat way too much salt. But if you get rid of all that processed junk, and it's just you got whole fruits and vegetables in front of you, and a tiny pinch of salt at the table, I don't think presents any problem, and shouldn't be a frightening prospect for people. But if you are someone with high blood pressure or who really need to avoid salt, there's wonderful ways to tease your taste buds without actually putting salt on it. I've become a big fan of lemon juice on my greens. If you just Google homemade salt substitutes, you can make all sorts of flavory powders to sprinkle on your veggies that satisfy that salt taste. And there's a wonderful product, I don't know stock in the company, but Benson's Table Tasty, lovely. It's nutritional yeast with some dried herbs. It tastes salty, but it doesn't have any salt in it. So there's ways to work around, and I'm sure if you go to AJ's website, she's got plenty of salt substitutes for you. I urge people to stay away from the processed foods and hold the added salt to a bare minimum.
So, Dr. Klaper, what would you say to someone who has given up hope that they could ever lose weight?
Oh, please don't give up hope. That's the absolute wrong thing to do, because there's nobody who can't lose weight on a whole food plant-based diet. If someone was way underweight and just eating whole plant foods and say, I say you're never going to put on a whole lot of weight on this food. And that whole other issue is skinny folks. But the vast majority of folks do not have that problem. So no, even grossly obese people weighing 400 pounds or more, eat soups and salads and greens and veggies and take a little walk every day. It's all you need to do, and the calendar will work its magic. Please don't give up hope. In fact, it's a guaranteed win. You will get lean on this food, but your body's never not looking. And it's got to really be whole plant foods. But if you do that, you will be rewarded. It may take you 6, 12, 18 months, but you will drop this weight, and you'll be a much healthier and happier person for it.
I love that. The calendar will work its magic. And of course, you're so well known for saying your body is never not looking. And that is so true. Dr. Klaper, what is the real truth about weight loss?
The real truth about weight loss is that it's the punishment, excessive weight is the punishment for violating the natural law of our body. And our body, with our fingers and our long intestinal tract, says we should be eating what grows on trees and roots and plants. We are plant-eating creatures. And as long as we obey that truth, and don't eat processed foods, including the vegan junk foods, you will not become obese, and obesity will melt away. So the whole trick to weight loss, keep your belly full of whole plant foods and all the glorious forms that it comes in, the salads and the soups and the greens and the casseroles and chilies and the curries and all this wonderful international cuisine that's available. But as long as it's whole plant food, weight loss will happen automatically, and it'll be something that you used to worry about, but you really won't have to in that lean, healthy body you'll now have.
I love that. Eat whole plants and obesity will melt away. Thank you so much, Dr. Klaper.
You are so welcome. Well done, AJ. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.